All right, this is just going to be a really short tutorial about how to get better at reading a math textbook. So math textbooks are way different from a lot of your other textbooks. In science, there's going to be a lot more explanation. In history or English, you're going to have a lot more text to digest. In math, there's really a couple very important things that you're reading for out of a math textbook. The first thing that you're reading for is the concept. And so you're trying to understand what is this section about and what is it trying to help me to understand mathematically. The second thing is you're reading for skills, which is a much different thing than, say, reading for information in your history textbook. So I've got sort of a three-step process that I used when I was in high school and college when I was reading and trying to read effectively my textbooks. What I would do first is I would pre-read the section, and I'll talk about what that means here in just a second, and I would highlight the important terms. Then I'll read it once really carefully, working the examples with the book, and I'll write some questions as I go. And then finally I'll read it a second time to make sure I understand it. Because when you're reading for skills, two things are really important. One is that you actually perform the skill as you read it, so that you can start getting used to seeing what it looks like when you work it out. Second is that you need to review it. So skills develop with practice, and the first two steps of your practice should be the reading steps. And so you should be reading carefully what's going on and writing, and then reading it again before you go on to practice it yourself. So let's go ahead and jump into it. The pre-reading, when I talk about pre-reading, this is what I mean. You want to look for what your textbook lays out as the important stuff. And what I'll do is I'll make some brief notes as a result of that. And these are going to be really brief notes. And so if I were opening up a new page in my notebook for this, I would do a pre-reading section. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to look through the textbook. And so I'm going to notice that I have a clear objective to evaluate and graph exponential functions. So I'm going to write that. That's the purpose of this whole section. If I can't do that at the end of this section, then I need to go back and try again. So again, that's my pre-reading thing. I'll make this so you can actually see it. So to evaluate and graph exponential functions, that's the object of this lesson. So that's my first note. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look through and see how many key concepts there are. So there's one, it's defining an exponential function. I'll go on to the next page. Then it gives me two examples, and those are both, the first one's identifying, the second one's evaluating. And then I have a third example, a fourth example. Looks like we're getting into, this is abstract, and then this is the real world. I'm just kind of looking and seeing, so I know what to expect, and then messing with the calculator a little bit. Okay, and then I have this lesson check at the end. And so the really brief note that I'm going to do is one important concept. And I'm going to write 5 different skills. And the reason it's 5 different skills is that I have 5 different problems that they give as examples here. And so I'm going to go back to the beginning now. I've done my pre-reading and I have an idea. It only took 30 seconds and it's going to enhance my understanding of things. I wrote down what my object is, so I've had a chance to lay down that memory about what it's going to be about. There's one important concept I need to look out for, and then I'm going to have 5 different skills that I need to go through, and those are going to be the 5 different problems. So I have a sense for what's going on in this section already. And so the second step in my reading is going to be to read once, working the examples with the book and writing questions as you read. So I would start reading through this. I might take some notes where it says to take note. Math textbooks are pretty good at pointing out important crap to you. Sorry, I just used a word I shouldn't have, I guess. Then I have this definition. It's going to show me what's going on. And of course, you'd be reading this more carefully to yourself if you need to. If you're an audible or an audio kind of learner, you can read it out loud. Then when I get to this first problem, I continue my notes. And I do problem 1. Because you have the textbook, you don't need to write out what the problem is. I wouldn't spend time doing that. But it's asked me the question, does the table or rule represent a linear or an exponential function? Explain. So I'm going to go ahead and write down the table. 0, 1, 2, 3, and then -1, and -3, -9, and -27. So when I'm looking at this table, it's asking me which one is it, linear or exponential. So I'm going to spend some time before I even get into the rest of the reading, and before I get into the rest of the example, I'm going to spend some time actually doing this. So this is +1, +1, +1. This is, it looks like -2, and then -6, and then minus, it looks like 18. So that tells me it's not a constant rate. And so it's probably exponential. And so then I look for a multiplication pattern. It looks like it multiplies by 3 times 3 times 3. And then, so I've kind of got the sense that it's exponential, and I would say it's got a multiplication pattern. So I look, and that's indeed what's going on. And so since I tried this problem on my own without reading through it first, I can now check my work and see if it made sense to me, and it appears that it does. And so let's say you get to a problem you have no idea how to proceed, then you might go ahead and read through and try to follow along and write it down as you follow along. But that's a really important thing. When you're trying to learn a skill, try it on your own first so you can challenge yourself to learn it, because you learn better through trying than you do through just straight reading. You'll retain it better. And then once you do these two examples, you can try these two other examples, and of course you can check with me if you are unsure whether or not your answers are right. You'd continue working through, and you'd end up with a lot more notes, at least 5 different problems you will have done. And then you'd want to try to read through it again, maybe read through your notes again. And the second time through that you've read, you should definitely spend some time and do some of these lesson checks. So this is here to see if it makes sense to you. And here's how you can know whether or not it makes sense to you. Are you sure how to answer each of these? If you are, then you're ready to go on to the practice. If you're not, it's time to back up and ask Mr. Bostwick for some help, or ask one of your peers for help. So if you've done your pre-reading, you've read it through once and taken some notes, you've read it through second time to review, and you get to this lesson check, and you don't know how to do this stuff, that's the time that you ask for help. After that, it's just plug and chug stuff. You're going to spend some time practicing. For these problems, most of them should be really short, and you should be able to work through them, but there's 50 problems for you to try to do in this section, and then you'll have another section to read. I'm sorry, I need to get a little bit more specific. You don't have to do this standardized. Yeah, I'll have to modify that a little bit. But and so then down here in the exponential growth and decay, you're going to have another section with another big set of problems for you to do. But you have several weeks to accomplish this. I would say that you need to probably practice a little bit each day for a while in order to try to bang it out. Good luck.